I'm a professor emeritus in the English department. I came to Davis in 1971, and in 1973 I bought a camera and began to take pictures. And through the course of the 70s decade, I began to mount some of these things, frame some of these things. They would get in a little gallery here and there. And it occurred to me that I needed to figure out what my attitude was toward those things I was making. And at the same time, figure out some way of understanding myself as the maker of those things. All right, about the same time, of course, I start looking at the work of Robert Arneson. I'm talking today about Pick, 1979, I think it was. So, and Arneson was extremely helpful to me. So, attitude toward your art. Well, what conclusions would you come to about Arneson's attitude toward his art? Brash, in your face, out there, like it's okay to do that. But if you're going to do that, it is advisable that you have some understanding of yourself, some coming to terms with yourself, some self-reflection. Arneson was really helpful to me on both of those scores. Another thing that I learned from Arneson was, if you're going to go from portraying yourself to commenting on the culture, as in the Moscone bust and in the Elvis Presley bust, if you're going to do that, interestingly enough, if people believe you have it together, they will take you seriously. Otherwise, you just seem to be bombastic. Right? Arneson seemed to me to have himself together. So, also during the 1970s, I was teaching in the Integrated Studies program, a program that still exists. Jim Shackelford here has something to do with that. And it's an honors program for first-year students. And for about a dozen years or so, beginning in the early 70s and through the early 80s, I taught a course in theology in the Integrated Studies program. And the students had one assignment: write your own theology. That's all there was to it. That was all there was. So I would periodically invite distinguished people on campus to come in and talk to the students about their theology. So one year, this was probably in the early 80s, I don't remember exactly when, I invited Wayne Thiebaud and Robert Arneson to come. Not together. Thiebaud came first. As you can imagine, he was a marvel of articulateness. He seemed to take what I had asked him to do straightforwardly, seriously. He talked to the students. About 3 weeks later, Arneson comes. Different stories. I've never quite been sure how I was to interpret what Arneson did. He was certainly not so articulate. But it occurred to me that what Arneson didn't do was buy into my assignment. Right? So, okay, you want me to come and tell these students about my theology and how my art might relate to my theology. By theology in this context, we really mean sort of basic primary philosophy. And I'm not going to do that. And it seemed to me Arneson sort of said and definitely implied that when it comes to figuring out such things as what philosophy and theology talk about, better not to talk, better to make. And it was an extremely interesting session. I had lots of conversations with the students afterwards because, of course, this is the first time they had encountered, I think, such an attitude. So, as I look back on that whole experience and looking at Arneson's work like this, I am quite thankful to him. He was extremely helpful to me. I think I admire his work. I admire who he was. So, Mr. Arneson, thank you very much.